Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. Today we're discussing the Lange Sohne Lange 1 time zone. You can see this travel time 18 karat rose gold Lange 1 on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and please click on the card in the upper right hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full sales listing for this watch with additional accessories included in the sale, high resolution images for your desktop, and naturally complete pricing details for this Lange 1 time zone. Now, this watch debuted in the mid-2000s with the original Grand Lange 1 case, so not the 40.9 but the 41.9. That gives Lange a little bit more real estate to lay out the unique dual time / world time setup, and the watch is a hybrid of the two. The closest comparison would be the Nomos Zurich Weltzeit or one of the Jaeger-LeCoultre geographic systems. Now the case, 41.9 millimeters across the round, does not include the crown in that measurement. It's still reasonably slim in spite of the 3-day power reserve and the complication, as it's only 11.4 millimeters thick, and you'll note that the bezel is dramatically domed and sloped, so it does allow a dress cuff to ramp up and over its flank. Now if you measure it from lug to lug, it's a big watch. 49.8 millimeters, however, means it's under the critical 50 millimeter threshold that I consider essential for a smaller wrist, and I define a smaller wrist as about 14 centimeters up to 16.5 centimeters on a man. What I will tell you, however, is that you have many options to accessorize, as the lug spacing is a standard 22 millimeters. The strap you see here is a anthracite semi-gloss, large rectangular scale bolstered nicely down the center with a light contrasting gray stitch. It has folded edges. It's very substantial, as you'll note just how thick it is in cross-section, but still very supple and flexible. The underside, supple calfskin, and Lange's signature pin buckle with the retaining bar, so if you are like me and you have a smaller wrist and you're going to buckle it down to the smallest hole, that phenomenon of the tightly pulled strap getting stuck on the ardient or the pin, that's not an issue when you have this retaining bar. It never allows the watch to get essentially choked onto your wrist. Smart. Lange has a lot of smart features in the design of this watch. First, the separate expression of the lugs in the case. You can see that the lugs are dramatically stepped out from the case band. They give a little bit of character and a little bit of a shapely external masculinity to the case, which is otherwise quite sensuous, rounded, almost a little bit feminine in profile. It has a delicacy that becomes a dress watch. The timepiece features an opaline silver dial, which is to say it's basically a matte metallic. It's not a sunburst, so it doesn't have that explosive quality in the light. It's rather a soft glow in any light. You can see outboard a bunch of reference cities, 24 in total. You note London, Greenwich Mean Time. Each of the cities represents one of the 24 principal time zones of the world. And unlike conventional world time watches where you have a counter-rotating 24-hour ring and then stationary cities, here the cities are stationary until you change your time zone, and then you will actually line up the city of reference with the index that's somewhat off-center. It's where typically 5 would be, right between 4 and 5 on a conventional dial. Now what you do is you use the pusher adjuster on the flank to make the adjustment of your reference city, and having set your reference time identical to your local time, what you can do then is you can jump your reference city, and the mechanism will do all the math for you. There's no need to figure out what the offset is. It keeps track of it, and of course it's as simple as pressing a trigger. And for those of you who long for the crisp tactile feel of the datagraph's column wheel chronograph mechanism, you get much of that here with the time zone adjustment system as well as the Gmt Corrector system. Both are an absolute pleasure to use. Now you'll note, unusually for a dual-time watch, there are AM/PM indicators for both local and reference time, which is a thoughtful touch on Lange's part. And don't forget, there is a very small constant second sub-register. Power reserve scale indicated at 3 o'clock is manually wound, 3 days, twin mainspring barrels. But now let's say you want to set these two displays separately. Well, as you can see, the Gmt Corrector is one way to do it. If you pull the crown to extremity, note hacking or stop seconds, now you set both of them in sync, so there must be some way to decouple them. Well, the way you do that is you press down on the Gmt, and then you actually make your adjustments such that the local time is desynchronized from the reference time, and you'll also note that the reference cities are not moving, but you have to hold down the GMT pusher, pull the crown out, and then turn it counterclockwise to make these adjustments. Keep that in mind when you need to set the two time zones separately without using the GMT pusher. Now, turning the watch over, you can see it is richly appointed, and this is where, with no additional need to place the watch on the wrist for a wide shot, we can get right into the mechanism. Development started in 2003, it came to market in 2005, and thus this movement, per Lange's convention, is the L031.1. So you'll note beautifully executed but double engraved, as you can see the mechanism for the travel time as well as the conventional balance cock both freehand engraved in an elaborate, almost Art Nouveau style. 3-day power reserve, twin mainspring barrels, hacking seconds, dual time functionality, of course that unique geographic display system. The watch features all of the conventions of German watch finish, most of which in the modern era were pioneered by Lange, a company revived with a historic name in 1990 after the Berlin Wall fell. The conventions include a large 3/4 plate over the drivetrain and the barrels in the fashion of an old Saxon pocket watch, glasuta stripes. We are not in Switzerland, these are not Côte de Genève. You'll also note an untreated German silver compound used to make the bridges and the plates. And now it's not silver, and what it really is to achieve that golden glow is principally nickel, copper, and zinc, with copper imparting that golden hue. The reason it's not like a silvered Swiss movement is because those are generally brass that's been rhodium plated for corrosion resistance. German silver is inherently corrosion resistant, so it needs to not be plated. Now you also note there are two types of screws. You can see both polished and blued screws, and these are the kiln-fired heat blued screws, not chemically dyed. You'll also note jewels set in chaton. These are old-fashioned style jewel settings that date to the pocket watch era when assembly tolerances were considerably less robust and precise than today, and thus it was better to simply create a tight fitting that would be held in place by screws, allowing the jewel to seat evenly in the bridge, and then also making it easy to remove the jewel for cleaning and relubrication. And finally, there is a tight and even perlage across the base plate, and though there are few edges to the bridges and cocks of this rather simple layout, you won't notice the mirrored anglage on the edge of the bridges, the cock system for the GMT, and the balance cock for the balance itself. The balance beating away at 3 Hz or 21,600 vibrations per hour. You also notice black polish on the cock for the escape wheel, and that beautiful mirrored gleaming anglage on the edge of the 3/4 plate. As good as it gets on your wrist if you want to travel in style. There are very few choices finer than this one. Quintessentially Teutonic, but with a distinct warmth and heart to it. You can see and you can purchase this Lange 1 time zone on our website.